It is great to be here again with you all too. And I love the song, Guy. It's really great to have a handle for what's the answer to anything, right? So love is a really good handle and it warms all of us. And I really loved the reading, Sue, especially the part when you said um, something comes to mind, an insight comes to mind. And that doesn't happen by accident. That it comes to mind because you've allowed yourself to imagine that it's possible. It comes to mind because you've planted the seed to be receptive. It comes to mind because you've become more open and willing to move into something new or maybe even mysterious. It comes to mind when we're ready. And there's nothing new. We're not teaching anything new. We're not exploring anything new. We're just every day seeking to work with the same material in a new way. And sometimes that way or that day can really feel like a mystery where we don't understand. I was listening to the conversation that we were having. I wasn't in it, I was just observing and talking about, the values that we each have. And what about when our values run contrary to someone else's? And what if we don't know what's the right decision? What if we can't figure it out? Um, what if we don't want to do what others would like us to do, but we want to fit in? All of those things, the everyday living of life is sometimes such a mystery. And I don't know if that's just for me or not, but I imagine that it's for you too. So anyway, I'm thrilled to be here. I see an old friend of mine I invited this morning, Pat Shook, is here. So welcome to you, my friend. And we can see your ceiling really great, but I'd love to see your face. So whatever it takes to tip your camera, that would be awesome. And I want to start here. Consider this. It just never works. It's just always been like that. No matter what we do, you can't change City Hall. That's just the way it is. It Don't try. It's never going to change. I wonder how a bird flies with gravity and all. What do you think it would take for us to be able to? Do you think we could? How did that happen? What really wants to happen? Oh my God, did you see that? Wow, I never thought of that. Did you see that coming? Wow. Look. Oh my God, it worked. So often there's two things happening at the same time inside of us. And they're both stimulated by something. And there's a reaction, maybe more than one, and a response. And those things are different. A reaction is when your emotions are the driver of how you show up. And a response is when you have a more measured, more thoughtful experience or a way of expressing what's going on. And ultimately, I believe that all of life really is in our hands and that everything really is possible. But a lot of the time when something happens, I don't think that. I think, yeah, but what about that? What if that happens? Or, well, it hasn't worked before. But what would it take for it to work? I don't know. I don't have time to think about that. I just have to get it done. I'll just do it the way I know how. When there is this constant dance between the obvious and the subtle, the known and the unknown, the mystery and the discovery. It just never works. They always get it their way. Oh, I wonder, that just really worked. Now, what did I do differently? We're always at choice how we interact with the events in our life. And you've heard all of those things. Is the cup half full and half empty, or half empty? Is it what you do with lemons, or is it lemonade? We all know that there's these choices, and we all fall into them from time to time mindlessly. And those thoughts of possibilities do not come into our head unless we've been sowing the seeds of possibility in some way or another. And so there's one of the unity principles is this power of our word. The power of using our beliefs, our thoughts, our words, and our actions consciously to create something different, perhaps, than what has come before. Thomas Troward said, "My mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression, and this means the production of something beyond what has come before, something entirely new, not even included in the past experience, though proceeding out of it. In my own special world, of which I am the center, it moves forward to create new conditions, always in advance of what has gone before. My mind is the center of divine operation." And not only my mind, but my ability to perceive, my ability to sense and feel, sometimes overruling that busy brain of mine, stepping over the habitual thoughts, and my ability to feel my way into a new experience. And so in unity, when we teach that this power of thought it's a principle, it requires for us to activate that principle. We all have it. It happens for anyone, whether they are 2,000 years ago or today, living in Iran or in France or in China or right here, Santa Rosa, or on the virtual web. That law, that principle is no respecter of persons, as it was said in a great book. It works for everyone, whether they're using it for greatness and a revelation of new possibility. Just think about Copernicus or Carl Sagan or Mother Teresa or, oh my goodness, just think of any discoverer who has changed the world in little or small. Madame Curie, Just they we make room when we use that principle really from a place of knowing ourselves. There's a little formula called E plus R equals O, and I may have shared it with you before. I discovered it in a book written by Jack Canfield, one of the Chicken Soup for the Soul people. What a blessing those books have been to the world, right? So E is event and R is response and O is outcome. Event plus response equals outcome. So sometimes we cannot control the events. Just think about some of your least favorite events right now. They're happening all around. Do I get the shots? Do I vaccinate? Do I leave my house? Do I travel to another state? Or anything, just anything. Just think of your own thing. So there's an event, one of your least favorites. Are you the letter R? Are you reacting or are you responding? Are you saying, are you judging or are you accepting? What is your relationship to that event? Do you know? Or do you know why? I mean, so often I notice that I'm working on what I've always done or on automatic, not even thinking. And here I am teaching about thinking, and sometimes I'm not. I'm just doing because it's kind of built in, I have a little track and my skis are greased and I'm going down that path because that's the one I've always gone down. Because I know it. I go down it easily because it's familiar. It's not so familiar going on the path that someone else told me would really be great if I wanted to write more. Oh no, I know how to get there. I just have to make time. It'll come someday. Just, talk to Ty and Elle about that. They've broken through that. I'm still, knocking on the door of that one, kind of pushing the door open every once in a while because there's a lot of unknowns or whatever the reason is for me. So we have to come to understand our relationship to those events, which means we have to understand ourselves. The Oracle of Delphi, that great saying that all the Greek philosophers spoke of, know thyself. Well, how do we choose correctly if we don't? If we're on automatic, we're not choosing consciously. We're just on automatic. We all have within us all the capacity to do whatever it is that occurs to us to do. And unfortunately, we don't believe it enough. And so some of us are believing it more and more. And I think that's why we're here. We're here to understand, how does this life work? How do birds fly anyway? How can I fly? How can I understand that the world is whole and that there's one humanity? How is that possible? That if we are so connected and there's only one humanity and we all come from the same source, how come we haven't gotten connected yet, really? How is it possible that there is still division and divisiveness? What would it take for us to be happier? To love anyway? Those kinds of questions stretch us out of, I'll get to it as soon as I have time, or, well, you can't give an inch and they'll take a mile, and all the things we do to protect ourselves. I have a sign on my fridge in Ukraine and it says self-preservation or self-realization. Your choice. So, and really it is our choice. The law and that principle don't care. They aren't attached. They just are the vehicle to use. And so I can use it to protect myself, or I can use the same process of thinking and acting and believing and speaking to break the boundaries down, to step outside of that cozy little box. But in order to do that, in order to lean into the future, there's things I need to take care of myself right now, today. I need to know myself a little more. I need to know what supports me. I heard someone say this morning, I was very pleased to see that I could change my mind around something really big. That's a wonderful thing to discover. It's a huge piece of work to do. And if we judged ourselves as having the wrong opinion to start with, we'd never get there. Or if we kept that judgment, oh, look, there's my son and my granddaughter. Oh, hi. If we kept there in that opinion of the way things are, then this is just the way I feel and this is just the way it has to be, then we'd never discover anything outside of the box. Nothing new would ever happen. There wouldn't be new kinds of roses. There wouldn't be new breeds of creatures. There wouldn't be new experiences to have. There wouldn't be new talents discovered, new ways of working together revealed. So yesterday I was, well, first of all, I wanted to say that it's really great to know what is mysterious for you. Like, what is a mystery that maybe you're afraid to enter? You're not interacting with because it's always been that way. I don't know how to change it, and I just can't. But my mother's slogan was just don't quit. Never quit. Don't say no. Don't say can't. So what is it that you would like in your life? What is calling you? What is exciting? And what can you do to activate that? So I had a conversation yesterday with someone who said, it just doesn't work. It's not going to change. It'll never change. Not in my lifetime. It's always been that way. And I said, well, not necessarily. Something has to change. Things evolve, right? Well, it's just always been that way. And I got to thinking, why has it always been that way? And I wondered what happened when people like Mother Teresa or Armstrong or anybody who has ever stepped out into the unknown. I wonder what they used to allow themselves to step forward. What are we feeding ourselves about the mystery? What are we feeding ourselves about the change we want to have in our life? And then how do we respond to those change, those moments of change? Do we go, well, that was lucky? Do you think it's luck, really? No, it's not luck. It's because we've been preparing ourselves for this change. And sometimes we stumble into it, right? Just seems to fall into a change. What we do with these moments, whether it's an insight that comes to mind, or we fall into a change, or we've been seeding it for years, just hoping it'll come, and then it finally comes, what matters is what is our relationship to that event. Do we go, oh, wow, it's finally happened, or gosh, I wonder how long this is going to last? One event can have two or more responses, relationships all the time. And it's our choice what we put into it. So the fear of the unknown is what keeps us away. But I remember Joseph Campbell, one of my favorite Joseph Campbell quotes is, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." So what if we plant in our consciousness today, in our internal compass, what if we plant there this idea that, sometimes it's through those things that are difficult where we really find ourselves. Maybe someday we're not going to need difficulties. Imagine that. I mean, imagine a world where you don't have to have a huge trauma to understand yourself more. Imagine a world where you go outside and the birds who are nesting in a box 2 feet from your head, which is so mysterious to me. How do they manage to nest on my porch, right 2 feet from my door and 2 feet from my chair and table where I meditate in the morning? How does that happen? If I didn't start answering the question, I'd just stay in the mystery. I have to start imagining, how does that happen? Wow, that happens because it's a safe place. Well, what makes it a safe place? I don't let the dog jump and bat at the birdhouse. He could anytime she wanted, but she doesn't. I could make lots of noise going in and out of the house, but I don't. I always open the door softly and I say, "Hi, good morning. How are you?" And I've been doing this for 3 years. And for 3 years, this little bird family, maybe it's their cousins, their children, I don't know, these little gray titmice, they come and they go through the whole life cycle, and I'm in the middle of it. Where do you get an experience like that? I mean, I understand what the baby sounds like. I see the pattern of which one goes in first, and the mother goes in and the father stays out. And I just watch the whole thing, because I've allowed myself to slow down enough to be there, for starters. I've allowed myself to be curious about, and it more than anything, I feel connected to these little birds. Not just like, isn't it great to have birds? I mean, I feel connected to those birds. I know that we're all part of something miraculous. And so when we're caught up in the "it just never will happen," along comes something from life. And so yesterday, shortly after I had the conversation about "it'll just never happen," a really dear friend of mine and I got to talking, because I followed the intuition to call her. And she told me about a story on NPR yesterday, on morning weekend edition, by a woman who's written a book called something about the wisdom of the mother tree. And it's a story of how trees communicate with each other through their roots underground, and that there is a whole system. This woman is a biologist, a researcher, a professor, an educated, a Canadian, yay Canada, and a loving, caring, environmentally conscious person who says the trees are always communicating with each other. And I went, wow, if that's happening and the trees are communicating with each other, if that were really true, what could we do? Could we slow down enough to really communicate with the trees that are right here with us, or the birds, or each other, or how about with ourselves? Oh my goodness. I want to tell you a little story. One day, my daughter and I were sitting on the front porch of a house in Sebastopol, where I lived, on Elphick Road. And it was really windy. And we were out there just in the wind. And it wasn't like a storm. It was just a windy day. And the cottonwood tree, we had this mother cottonwood tree. It was so big around, it took like 4 people to circle it with our hands to get around that tree. And when I heard this story yesterday about this woman, and I listened to her talk, I went and found it, where she talked about the science of how communication is happening underground from the roots of the trees. What does that say to us about what's possible in the world? Copernicus must have known that to take the risks that he took, right? So we're sitting on the porch and it's windy as can be, and this beautiful mother cottonwood tree, who's, I don't know, 100 feet tall and 4 people wide, its leaves have the most wonderful sound. I don't know if you ever have been around a cottonwood, but they have such a great wind tone. And then we just said, isn't that great? And we were talking about it. And then down the road came the tree cutting truck. the one with the big boom that goes and cuts the trees down. And that truck came down, and we both noticed it. And then what we noticed is instantly is that there was no rustling of the cottonwood tree. It stopped. There wasn't a movement. It was still windy. There was not a movement. And the two cottonwood daughter trees that were about 30 feet just to the other side of our property, they stopped moving their leaves too. They became as invisible as possible. We both burst into tears. And how do you explain anything like that? How do you explain it? But there is a connection to this, to everything that's happening. And if cottonwood trees could communicate through their roots 30 feet away and feel that truck, what could we do to change our lives? So they could not stop that truck, and nor could I. But I could use that experience for good for myself. And I do. And so when life feels like, no, you can't, we must decide to use this principle in a conscious way by saying, I wonder how it would work. Or imagine waking up in the morning and feeling excited. Imagine waking up and not being so overconfident that you can't let yourself change. Imagine waking up and not needing to be stubborn to hold the boundaries of my life together. Imagine waking up and feeling curious about the birds, or even curious about myself, or curious about what's possible at all. Imagine if we could do things like that. When change happens, there's a moment when you get it, when you notice it, right? On May Day, well, I made up the little announcement for the Unity program, and I wrote May Day just unconsciously, May, M-A-Y-D-A-Y, M-A-Y-D-A-Y. I didn't even think, I never even considered, how did May Day become May Day? Now, in Europe, it's Labor Day, but it's also the day of freedom for workers. It's freedom from work because they have the responsibility of working enough. They have their freedom on May Day. It's a big holiday. And I was in the Soviet Union when it became Russia. And I was in Red Square, where there was a May Day parade for 80 years filled with tanks and soldiers. Just the whole military industrial complex is on display on May Day, or used to be on May Day in Red Square. And I was there. And I have a picture of myself, but I couldn't find it. But in the picture, there's me, and there's this huge building behind, which is Gum's department store, which is something fantastic to see. And on it is a sign that's about 200 feet wide and about 85 feet tall, and it says Freedom Works. It was the first May Day after the fall of the Soviet Union. So, yes, freedom does work, but you have to use it. So while we were all over here celebrating that, there was a freedom in the Soviet Union, and that there was a new birth of a more democracy, more democratic way of living, Ukraine just lost 80% of their market and 80% of their jobs. And we have no clue about that. We're just naively celebrating freedom. But when you understand that it takes a conscious choice to let go of 80% of your market in order to become free eventually, 20 years later, Ukraine is getting ready to be free, but there was 47% unemployment when I went there in 2001. And so these choices, we must see them for what they are. They don't happen overnight. If something great happens in our life, it needs to be nurtured. It's like a sprout that comes into our garden. We need to water it and fertilize it. We can't just take it for granted. We can't say, okay, that one's done, check, go on to the next. No, we need to value it, recognize it, give thanks for it, find the good about it and praise it, because otherwise we might not realize the real benefit. It's just starting. You just ask any black or brown person if racism vanished when Barack Obama was elected. No, it was an opportunity that was presented. And it's taken all this time to begin to face the difficulties of that opportunity. And the only way we're going to get to the other side is by going through it as consciously and lovingly and openly and bravely as we can. And that's how change happens, by facing it. Last weekend, my little granddaughter, as you can see down there, was given an opportunity for something that she didn't think she was ready for at first, to ride a great big horse in her first competition. And then in the middle of her waiting to have her time, she was all prepared for this particular event. They told her, no, you can't do that event. You'll have to do this other one, for which she had never practiced, not once. Didn't even know. And their teacher's showing her with a finger thing in the sand how to do it. She's on this big horse. It's only her 7th lesson. And she's on this huge horse competing with a bunch of people. It must have been mysterious. But, the way she responded to it is, I can do this. And she did it. And we all were like, wow, look at how well she's handling that. Because it would have been so easy to go, that's not fair to give me something at the last minute. Right? But she didn't. She said yes. So, but it isn't enough for her to just say yes and feel like, okay, I've arrived. Now she has to understand, what is it in me that gave me the ability to say yes? How do I use that tomorrow when I get my next challenge? It's so juicy, this life that we live in. Every day we're given these insights. So the moments to seize, what a gift they are. And seize them we must, but don't take them for granted. I've made lots of changes, and then I've gotten lazy and let some of the care and feeding of those changes drop away. And guess what? Things change. When you value something, you got to value it. Not take it for granted. Recognize the gift in yourself, but don't get egotistical about it. Like I said to Faithy, wow, what did you feel and what did you learn? And she said, I felt like barfing. And what I learned was that I'm courageous. I went, woohoo! I mean, really. So don't we feel sometimes like, I can't do this. It's too scary. Everybody's going to hate me. I'm going to fall off the cliff. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to fail. But if we let that stop us, then we don't become who we're born here to be. Oh, gosh. Life is here for us. It's a gift. And I am so grateful to be waking up to that and learning how to stay awake enough to make the most of the ups and the downs in my life, and to give myself time to see the healing that has to change. And so I want to just end with this, one of my favorite, two favorite quotes. One from Ernest Holmes that says, the consciousness of wholeness is the healing presence. The consciousness of wholeness is the healing presence. So when you can look at a fly Like my son can't kill anything in the house. He takes them all outside. When you can look at a fly and feel yourself connected to it, that's the consciousness of wholeness. Or when the neighbor moves in and you don't much like them, but you know that they are deserving just like you, that they have 100% of the same ingredients as you do, 100% pure spirit. That's a consciousness of wholeness that is grace, that gives you the grace that Sue talked about in the beginning in that reading. So, and Buckminster Fuller said, you don't change reality by fighting against it. If you want a new reality, go build a new model, and the old model will become obsolete. So if you want a new reality, go for it. It's possible. It's already like waiting and calling you. It's already done in the realm of possibility. It just needs your activating this principle of the power of your word and your action. Don't take it for granted and don't let your ego get a hold of it. We're in service to humanity's connection, period. To expressing this amazing thing called life to the best of our ability and loving and all that we can, forgiving all that we can, living present all that we can. Phew, that's it. Be yourself fully, no matter what, warts and all. With those extra 25 pounds, who cares? Be loving to ourselves. So anyway, that's it. E plus R equals O. Remember, you're the key to the outcomes in your life. So am I. Thank you. Take a breath and imagine waking up and realizing that your world is the world of your dreams. Imagine the wonder of waking up and knowing that your world is perfect. It works for everyone. And imagine that you have the courage to make the choices that brought it there. That we use the principle of life, the creative power within us, to create the world that works for all of life. It's our personal work. So it is. I imagine that I am free to live my life fully. I imagine that I am responsible enough to know how to enjoy living my life fully. I know that there is a power and a presence within me and within all of life, and that means every person here and every person that any time ever hears this. And that power and that presence is what fuels the fire within my body to grow and prosper, for the cells to do their job, for the heart to know to beat, for the lungs to know to breathe. There is something that is divine, and it's in me, and it's in everyone, and it's in every living thing. according to its nature. And I am mature enough and willing enough to remember that that's true about me and it's true about you. And through this, our humanity is strengthened, one heart, one string at a time. And I know that our lives matter and that what we do makes a difference. And so I am blessed. We are blessed. Life is blessed. It is a blessing. And I give up worry and doubt and step into my life more fully today. And if that's appealing to you, that's for you too. Because that's the law. That's what's possible. So it